Work is changing. The question is, are you? Welcome to 99 Problems But Work Ain't One, the new podcast series from How Now that will help you prepare for the fast-changing world of work. I'm your host, Nelson Sivalingam, and I'll be talking to disruptive startups, contrarian thinkers, global leaders, and real game changers, and asking them the burning questions about the challenges we face at work. From scaling cultures and adopting technology to improving well-being and building fast-learning organizations that are prepared for the future of work, we get the insights, tactics, and actionable nuggets of knowledge to put to work. How does someone go from running a record shop to becoming a qualified triathlon coach and launching a tech platform that helps young people get into employment, all while winning an OBE along the way? I'm exhausted just reading that out. Only Esther O'Callaghan, founder of Hundo, can help us answer this question. So I'm thrilled to say that she joins us for this week's episode of 99 Problems. From increasing entry-level talent and how that can help diversity, to fixing flaws in the academic system to get more young people into positions they love, we covered a lot in this episode, including how Esther prepared for that first triathlon from scratch and getting large corporations to take interest in entry-level talent. So let's get into this amazing conversation with Esther. Esther, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Look, before there's a bunch of stuff I want to cover with you because we've been meaning to have this chat for a while. But like I said in the kind of introduction to you, you've had a very colourful, varied career journey, life. All the way from running a record store to getting an OBE. And the question I want to start with is, how do you decide what to do next? Like in general, in your career and life, when you're thinking about what do I do next, how do you decide?
I think it's only recently, like over the last few years, where it's become a more defined choice. I'd say until now, I've been very much, I do things that I'm interested in, and it's usually related to causes that I care about and think are essential and need supporting. And I think I've reached a point now where my purpose is very defined, and it kind of always has been. It's always been about youth and employment. Actually, it's always been about young people. I just kept sort of like trying to like diverge away from it because I'm like going, it's really hard, and sometimes it's really depressing, and sometimes it's really frustrating, and sometimes it doesn't work. And now I've just given in and gone, this is clearly what I'm built to do. So, and actually accepting that instead of just like going off on a tangent is better.
When did you realise that was your purpose, right? You know, you said you've tried a few times, you veer off, you come back, and it's almost that thing that keeps bringing you back. From what point did that start, and why?
I think I never liked being sort of put in a box, you know, in terms of like people like, you know, this career, you know, you do this thing because you're like this. And I think because I was really young when obviously left school when I was 16 and went to work. And I think by the time I'd sort of hit, you know, 22, 23, I was in sort of quite senior positions, like on the National Big Lottery Fund board, you know, and so obviously because I was super young, I sort of tried to fit in that, oh, I'm on a national board of, you know, the government, therefore I need to like behave in this particular way that just really isn't me. And I think I sort of unconsciously like rebelled against it by then DJing at the same time and having a record, you know, it's sort of like just trying to, and I think that's just being young, to be honest. You're struggling to sort of, you're still figuring out who you are, and then sort of being put in these like, you know, sort of in these places. And whereas now, of course, I'm like much older and I just feel it's much easier to say, actually, I still do all these things. But I don't really feel like I have to justify why anymore. And so I think definitely getting older has helped with that. And sort of just finally honing in on if I commit to this, you know, if I actually commit to this and see it through, the possibility of how many young people we can help. I think that's where it just sort of really settles in me now and gives me a grounding of going, see this through now. You know, like now you've actually got something, you know, it's
I love that. And before we come to, talking about Hundo and what you're doing there, you do a lot of work with young people, and that's what we're going to talk about now as well. But that kind of empathy of what life was like when you were that age, right?
Yeah.
How much of that do you, I guess, remember and still go back to? And how much of your experience as a young person has kind of driven what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's I find it really easy to remember what things were like, and I think it's what drives me. It's kind of that. I remember being 14, 15, and the pressure of exams and coursework and hormones, and it's just people used to say, like, this is the best time of your life, and I was like, I flipping hope not. It just seems to me that it's a stupid thing to say, like, to a young person. It's like going, is this as good as it gets? Wow. No, thank you. To the rest of life. And I guess I've tried really hard not to make it all about me, if that makes sense. It's like because actually you can experience things. I've experienced a lot of really bad stuff, as a kid, some pretty brutal, times. But I don't think I've tried definitely not to build the whole business around that. It's almost going, yes, I have a deep empathy and a deep care for people, in general, actually, but particularly for young people, because young people don't get to choose the situation. I think when we become adults, we get choices, and then that's up to us. Whereas a lot of choice is removed from young people, and a lot of decisions are inflicted on them. And I always really struggled with that as a young person, and as an adult, I just fundamentally don't agree with it. So and as a parent, I've tried to not be a parent. I've tried to be an ally, and a friend and a mentor, and it's kind of, so I've seen it on both sides. But for me, it was much more around going, where I start and finish always is going, yes, there's my life, there's my story, but what young people are going through now, and what they're facing, and the odds that are stacked against them, for me, it's so much more about them now. But certainly being able to, I think the experience helps, because I think if you've never experienced something, it's really hard. If you've not had mental health issues, if you've not battled with depression, if you've not grown up in poverty, it can be quite difficult to conceptualize that's why that would be difficult and challenging. So I feel quite grateful for that. Didn't at the time. I do now.
It's really interesting because I was speaking to a few of my friends who've recently had children. And I find when you're raising kids or working with young people, it's almost, to be able to make present day decisions, it forces you to kind of confront your own upbringing and childhood. So maybe things that you didn't come to terms with at the time. Whilst you're making decisions for the person in front of you, whether that's your own child, you're trying to think back to, okay, what was I like, and what were the decisions that were made for me, and really that process of coming to terms with your own youth while helping someone else with it. Do you find that?
Yeah, definitely, because I think people they try to live vicariously through their children to have the life that they didn't have. And I did it myself. I was like, my son is never going to know hunger. He's never going to know poverty. And then all of a sudden, this kid has got more Lego than like the entire school, and it's not healthy. So I had to check myself in reverse, and sort of be like, actually, you're going to ruin this kid in a different way if you just pile all this on, And I think it's never. I don't think any parent ever sets out to be like a bad one. We have such a poor reference point anyway, and then we sort of just like, we perpetuate this stuff. And for me, with young people, it's about going, they have a right to be whatever it is that they want to be. Whether that, and if they want to be a joiner or a plumber, or they want to go into law, they want to be a lawyer, they all have an equal value. And actually, what makes them happy, because as you know, I've spent a lot of my career in the hard edges of what happens when young people's choices are taken away from them, suicide prevention, bereavement, self-harm, mental health. And it's like, that's what happens, when young people's children and young people's dreams are squashed, taken away. And as you can see, I do feel passionately about this. And I don't think it has to be this way.
So let's come to Hundo, right? I want to know the moment, what drove you to go, actually, I need to start this, right? This is, and when you decided to start this, how much of what it is today was a part of that initial idea? How much has it changed? Give me that kind of origin story of where this came from.
The origin story. How long do we have? So it's really interesting because it feels very much like when I had the record shop. The lad who ran the shop for me, Mark, we put together a project for schools, doing music workshops after school to re-engage young people in education and training. And that was almost the blueprint. I didn't know at the time, but that was almost the blueprint. And it's kind of like sort of 15, 16 years later, Mark went off and had an amazing career, like Live Nation, Time Out, Culture Trip, and he's now working with me again. And it's like, it feels like there's sort of like, so this is a beautiful sort of, I don't even know what the word is, but kind of like, so that whole time we didn't know that's what we were doing. We were just in our 20s, just doing something. And now it's like, that's kind of where it really started. And then obviously, sort of 2016, I was asked to work with the recruitment industry to set up a foundation, and I suggested that we should look at youth unemployment. And again, it was like I'd been self-employed for like ever, so I didn't really even know what recruitment was. So it was like I was just like in this office, so going like, I really have never seen anything like this, never worked in an environment like this, and I started to see the possibility of like there was something in it. I wasn't bright enough to like figure it out, but I was like I could feel there was some way of taking this kind of like social mission, and this social purpose and trying to find a solution. And then I met Piers, who's my co-founder, and he'd done 10 years in investment banking, private equity, recruitment. And he came and volunteered with me for like 6 months. And he just came back and he was like, it's just so inefficient. Like the whole process of young people leaving education, trying to get a job is like totally inefficient, because he's like the complete opposite of me. And so we both sat there and we were like, there's got to be a better way. Like, because it's not really working for anyone. It's not working for young people. It's not working really for educators, because they don't want to see the young people they've just worked with drop off and end up at the job centre. No one wants that. Yeah. And employers on the other side are going, we really need entry-level talent. We've got skills shortages. We've got gender diversity problems. And I guess that sort of perfect storm in many ways was where Piers and I were like, okay, like let's build a program, let's test it, let's see if it works. And then I went and spoke to the person who'd been my major donor at the charity, and he said, yes, I'm going to back you as a business. Go away and write a pitch deck. Yeah. And from that time on, I've become something I never expected to be, which is a tech company co-founder. So, which is as much a surprise to me, I think, as anyone else who's known me for the last 2 days. Like, what are you doing now? I'm like,
Esther, tell me, what is the better way, right? So, the problem makes sense, and like you said, it's not working for anyone. So, and they're the best kind of problems, right?
Yeah.
And so, tell me what the better way is.
So for us, I'd always looked at it through the lens of young people, and on that side of it, and just gone, we know why employment is good for young people, but trying to look at how you can. The problem with that way is you're always relying on charity. You're relying on donations. You're relying on goodwill, and that's not sustainable. And that's what I learned, and sort of. So I looked at it and I was like, how do we build a solution ultimately that is designed with the young person at the heart of it, but that is actually that an employer will turn around and go, yes, I need that, and yes, I want those young people, not because I feel sorry for them, but because I actually recognize I need entry-level talent in my business. So the way that we ultimately what we want Hundo to become is that bridge between educators and employers, so that we can start the conversation early with employers to say, even if you're like a scale up or a startup, it's like, start thinking about your entry level talent, because if you want to achieve a diverse pool of talent across your whole of your business at every level, you have to start there. With things like, with Black Lives Matter, with, I was talking to Josh Akapo, it's like, young Black people are facing the equivalent levels of unemployment as when the Brixton riots were happening. This is a bad situation, and actually no young people are faring well. You can't mandate tick box quotas into businesses. Like, it won't work. And you can't sit in a committee talking about diversity. It's like, you have to start it from the entry level, because then in 3 years' time you will have a kind of consistent pool of diverse candidates coming through, and that's really our sweet spot. We're sort of going, work with us now, we can help you build a comprehensive entry level talent program and solution that is going to achieve the diversity that you want within your business. And that's different for different businesses, So like for gaming, massive gender diversity issues, banking, just diversity issues like at every level, so and it's kind of going, so there's no, we're really aware that there's no one size fits all, but what we do with employers, the first thing we do is we put them through a two-step process, which is, the first bit is a scorecard, which is basically they submit all of their early talent collateral, and then we send that to young people, to Gen Z to go, do you understand what this business does? Would you work there? Do you even think you could work there? And we start there, and from that feedback and those insights, we then build the employer launch pads, on the Hundo platform, and then young people and employers can start interacting, because career discovery, even knowing what jobs are out there, is a barrier. So that's kind of, that's like the first bit, that we're doing, and that's what we're going to spend the next sort of 12 months, 12, 18 months building.
There's so much there to unpack, Esther. I guess, how receptive do you find these corporates or large organizations are? Are they aware there is a problem? And therefore, are they receptive to a solution that can help them solve this problem?
I think corporates and like bigger companies, I think it's much more challenging for them, because they have so much more going on, I suppose, in a way. And they've got sort of, committees and, kind of infrastructure that takes longer, whereas when you talk to like SMEs and you talk to scale ups, particularly like younger founders themselves, that they're much more agile, and they're much more able to go, oh yeah, if we work with Hundo, you're like our entry level talent pipeline, you're our HR function for that thing that we want to achieve. So that's easy, that you can just plug and go. Whereas with enterprise, bigger clients, obviously it's harder. But having said that, we partner with Reed,
right,
and they have been amazing. They've absolutely seen the value of this, absolutely recognise that as a business, even though they are a great business to work for, they just don't achieve finding these kids that they would really like to hire, and the fact that we can just help them do that. So I think it very much depends on the business in terms of its DNA. Some will really get it and others will struggle. We can work with both, but obviously some are easier than others.
Going back to what you said earlier around the kind of different ways people have tried to tackle this in terms of quotas and tick boxes, and sometimes almost feeling like it's a handout, or it's a kind of a track. Because I remember, and one of the things I know we've connected over before is I come from a quote unquote disadvantaged borough. I'd still live there, and growing up as a kid, I know there used to be a lot of disadvantaged kid things that they used to do. And one of the really frustrating things was we used to have people come over from like the European Parliament, etc., and they would like interview you, like, what's it like? This is, and it was almost like
so awkward.
We didn't know any different. Like that was me going up, and so it's almost coming to terms of I didn't know what the better life was.
Yeah.
But this person asking me this question evidently makes me aware that there is a better life and this is slightly different. And everything, even if it was coming from the right place, you almost felt like it was antagonizing you because it felt you were frustrated at what you didn't have rather than it coming from a place where it was aspirational and you wanted to get it. So that I find is such a fine line, right? Because so how do you, I guess on both sides, how do you communicate that in a way where the young person doesn't feel patronized or frustrated at this kind of discrepancy? And how do you make the organization communicating this in a way that's not coming across that way? Bit of a loaded, full-on question, but I'm sure you.
It's a good one though. Yeah, it's good, and to be honest, I look, it's similar to you. It's like single parent family. My grandma was from Sri Lanka, so it's like we grew up in a completely diverse household, whatever. But I do feel like I tread this fine line between like not wanting to be this like worthy lady, all these young people, and then with employers, sort of trying not to be like, just hire them, just give young people a job, like, come on, like, so it's a real conflict for me. I agree with you. I think I'm so bored of the labels, I'm bored of this generation being called Generation Lost, and I was sick of, young people being called ASBOs, like back in the, it's like, can we please stop labeling? I don't even like using the phrase young people, because I talked to Nadia, who works with me, and she's like, it's such a stupid word. Like, I go, oh yeah, you're the young person, and it's like, oh God. So it's a minefield. And I agree with you. I think we have to change the narrative around what's possible. And actually, instead of there's bias on both sides. That's what I've learned. Kind of like, young people have a particular opinion of employers or types of employers, and employers very definitely have an opinion about young people. And I think that actually breaking that down is a challenge. And I think you have to do it through language and narrative. And so for us, it's why, it's why our strapline is now connecting forward-thinking employers with Gen Z talent. It started off with, young people leveling up and leveling the playing field and all this, and it's just like it's just rhetoric, it's empty, and it's kind of, so I think that's important, and I agree with you. People who come from places of disadvantage, the stats speak for themselves. Is it something like 80% of the billionaires in the US were college dropouts? And I go like, because it's just very much that for me. It's a thing of going, they might be disadvantaged. You could put socioeconomic disadvantage. Okay, so let's say what that really is. That's poverty. That's intergenerational poverty created by the system. So let's actually say it what it is. Child poverty is what causes youth unemployment. So let's just say that as a statement, and not wrap it in words, that make it seem less acute. And then actually say, if this young person has grown up in an environment that was challenging and difficult, the amount of resilience and skills and abilities that's given them is massive. And so let's not judge them for their academic failings. Let's actually look at what they're bringing to the table, and let's match them effectively with a future that they want. And I think it's that, I think we really need to do that, and we need to stop making policy on poverty from a position of privilege.
Just on that, Esther, you mentioned kind of how much of it do you think it is academic failings versus the failing of academia and education itself, right? Because you mentioned earlier around young people and the number of jobs that they know exist, and I've seen this with the work I've done with young people in our local area, that there's still only about 5 jobs they know that they think exists out there. And almost, you think, just more awareness and it's the classic kind of, especially when you come from the kind of quote disadvantaged or poor background, is you don't necessarily have the network, right? So there are many jobs that I never met until I was in my 20s, right? I didn't know these jobs existed and people would get paid to do that job. And I find the same thing, exist today. And if you don't know that, you almost don't know to kind of seek it out or seek out what I need to learn and what skills I need to get that job, because I didn't know that job existed. So what can we do there? Because there's so many stakeholders, right? There's the kind of parents and families, there's the kind of education system. And so how do you even begin to solve this?
Yeah, for the last 3 years, I've been burning my brain out, like trying to figure that out. And the truth is, there is no one simple solution, and that's why ultimately Hundo will become a marketplace, that brings all of these things together. We're not so arrogant as to say that we have the one solution. And I also, the education system, at a systemic level is difficult because it values academia so much more highly. And I was, I had special educational needs at school. I have a D in maths, and it's like, so it's kind of that, and that was a good grade for me. I mean, I'm amazed I even got that. And it's just that sort of, there is no flex, there's no flexibility. It's such a rigid system that's been in place for so long. There are some brilliant educators within it. There are some great teachers. I've had both, good ones and bad ones. They can make all the difference. But we have to stop, I think, judging on this one metric. And there's nothing in the system at the moment that allows for what are the entrepreneurial skills, what all that stuff that's going on outside of the sitting learning in this, in this really rigid, regimented way. So for us, we bridge it by partnering with colleges,
right?
And sort of going, again, teachers tend to have been teachers as a career choice. They went to uni, they went to that. So how are they supposed to know the just plethora of jobs and things that are out there? And again, most of the jobs exist within the SME space, so it's very fragmented. So for us, it's going, if we can bring, the colleges, come together on Hundo with the employers, and they're starting to share that learning and knowledge together. And all the way through that, young people can access both sides. They can see what courses are available. They can then see what jobs and what industries and employers exist that are relevant to that education that they're going to choose. And so for us, we're working at a much younger age group initially, kind of 16.
Right.
16 to 18, because if you as a 16-year-old can actually go, oh, I've been on this website, through my college, I've clicked on, life sciences, oh, there's all these like jobs and there's all these industries, not just the Deloittes and the all these, crazy companies that are sprouting up everywhere. You're giving, you're giving yourself a fighting chance because you're choosing education that's actually going to lead to jobs. And it sounds really simple. And it kind of is, but you have to build a platform to do that. So
no, it makes sense. And I guess a step in that direction is the kind of the work you're doing with kind of the Kickstart scheme, right? So tell me a bit about that and how that works and what you've been doing with that.
Yeah, so I actually thought it was a brilliant move, from Treasury to provide free 6-month placements, for businesses. And what we did was partnered with Tempo to go, because they were able to basically submit jobs for Kickstart, and what we were able to provide was the support for the Kickstart candidates and the clients. Because obviously businesses were going, great, we can hire a young person for 6 months, but our fear, from the Hundo perspective, was going like, are they just going to sit making coffee? Like, are they going to have a really bad experience? And then also, once the placement ends, what's going to happen to those young people? I don't want to see them back at the job centre in 6 months' time. So we very much focused on very simple, it's like a check-in point, kind of in advance, are they okay? Have they got everything they need? And then like check-ins at the 3-month point and the 6-month point. And then obviously Kickstarters can, at least we know as their placements are ending, we can start to be looking at, can we support them either to stay within the business, even if it's like moving around a bit, or are there other employers that we have access to where we can be like, well, this person's now got 6 months of really great experience on their CV. The nice thing about the scheme is it's actually some really great careers. There's some really good jobs. It wasn't all just like Tesco or retail or, it was actually digital marketing, some stuff where you're getting really, really valuable skills. So I I feel quite hopeful, there'll be some good outcomes from that. We're
as someone who's listening to this right now and they're like, yeah, I want to get involved, and how do they get involved and benefit from what you're doing with the Kickstart scheme?
Yeah, so they can just direct message me on LinkedIn, or they can message Jennifer at hundo.careers, or just go on the hundo.careers website and there's a Kickstart page. So multiple ways of getting in touch with us.
And you know what, in some ways, this idea of kind of learning in a short period of time and upskilling young people ready for the kind of type of work that's out there, you're quite a good testament of that, Esther, because you've learned all kinds of things in a short amount of time. I mean, one of the things that stood out was prepping for the triathlon. So where did that come from? And what made you do that? And talk to me. I'm just interested in how you prepped yourself for that in such a short period of time.
Basically, it was the charity. We were raising money to support young people into work. There's a kind of a narrative here, and I was going like, young people are facing huge challenges and odds. Therefore, we should do things that really challenge us to raise money. I couldn't tell you why that felt so important at the time, but it really did. Now I'm just like, why didn't you just do bake sales? Like, it just was so much easier. But that was me 4 years ago, so it's me now. Is like, one of the teams that was raising money decided to do a triathlon and sign me in for it as well. And of course, I had no background in sport. I was completely written off at school because I was severely dyspraxic, so totally useless at sport. And yeah, I had to learn to swim and cycle and run in a very short space of time. But you're absolutely right. I was literally written off, so I'd never even have considered that I would be able to do these things. And I'm not brilliant at them, and I'm not a professional athlete. But I found something that I really loved, and actually vocationally opened up a whole new world for me. So I obviously learned to swim, cycle and run in that order. And I decided to do my coaching qualifications. So I'm a level 2 British triathlon coach, qualified now, and a level 3 sports therapist.
Right.
And it's fascinating because actually we talk a lot about young people, but actually for like an older generation, I'm like 41 now, and it's like, people feel written off, and I guess for me it's going, you can reinvent yourself as many times as you want. It's not easy. Learning to swim when I was terrified of water was not easy, but I do think if you've got that sort of, it's a growth mindset, isn't it? And sort of an element of not being afraid to take a risk, not being afraid to fail. And I do think young people have so much power, so much power to determine their futures. I see it as like my response, but as adults, it's like we should be like opening up that pathway for them. It's like, yeah, you want to do that, great, go and do it. It was actually bizarrely a DJ, John Digweed, who used to work in shows and stuff, and we were driving him back to his hotel, and he basically said his dad was like, DJing's not a career, you're never going to make, like this. And his father died before he got super famous. And I was like, this is years ago, like it's like 2001, like, and it really stuck with me. It's like going, just, yeah, people can surprise you, people can do amazing things if you give them the chance. Yeah,
it definitely resonates, Esther. It reminds me of, I remember when I started my first business and building it out. Even after a good couple of years, we've grown the team. I still had this one aunt who would keep asking me when I'm going to get a proper job. We're giving people jobs, we're creating jobs, but she kept her first question, when am I going to get a proper job? I'm pretty sure if I saw her now, she'd ask me the same thing. And so I can definitely kind of connect to kind of taking the unconventional route, and all of that is relative, right? But kind of going back to Listen, it's incredible that you did the triathlon. It's even more incredible that you decided to become a qualified coach, Esther. A great way of making me feel bad about myself.
No.
Given you've tried so many different things, right, and you've learned new skills, like you said, you're now a tech founder of a business, right? So do you now, in hindsight, when you look at it, feel like you have some kind of framework or approach for how you tackle new things? So when you're going into uncharted territory for yourself, is there a particular framework you have now where, yeah, you know what, I should do A first, then B first to be able to make sure, I'm as successful as possible within this space?
I would love to lie and say yes. But the truth is, I'm just ridiculously stubborn and hopelessly naive, so I just kind of go, oh, what's that? And someone says, yeah, give it a go, and I go, okay then, and then obviously live to regret it, weeks later. But no, I think it is just that. I'm interested, I'm curious about things. I don't think I've ever lost that childlike quality. I think we do lose it. I see people kind of become adult, and become sort of thing, and for whatever reason, I still have that. I always say, my son he's 17 now, but he turned 13 and sort of became the adult, in the family. So it's kind of I think it's that, and I am stubborn, and I think it's I'm willing to work hard. I don't have any superpowers, any special skills. I'm just willing to get in the trench and grind, and get it done. And I think that counts for a lot. There's very little that you can't achieve if you're willing to put the work in. That's my belief anyway.
I love that, Esther. And you know what? Curiosity in what you said there, I often think it's such a underrated skill. Yeah. Being curious, and I think it's unfortunately sometimes I hear it in the context of people almost looking at it like a wishy-washy. It's such a fundamental thing that drives so many other behaviors. You said trying to keep that inner child still active. So what can someone do? Right, someone listening to this, that adult who feels like they've kind of lost a bit of that curiosity. And what do you think they could do, or what are the things you've done to make sure you've kept that curiosity and to follow those kind of, that seeking nature to go explore and try it out? What can they do?
I think sort of having a moment to step back and look at your life, and go, none of us plotted our life. I don't believe anyone plotted their life to be how it ultimately became. Even if you did have a plan, it never works out quite how you imagined. And I guess it's something about, what are you interested in? What do you care about? Is it cooking? Is it skiing? Is it crocheting? Is it knitting? Are there things? Is it the adult coloring books? This explosion of this thing, because it's and I don't think I think people feel this tremendous pressure, and certainly it's reflected to me. A lot of people go, I don't know how you do what you do, and it's don't use that as a benchmark for what you should be doing, because I can look at 10 other people and go, I have no idea how they do what they do, and we're never going to get there if we keep benchmarking ourselves against other people. It's really, really not. I don't think it helps. There's always going to be someone faster, better than me at myriad things. I'm not bothered about that. It's. I think it's a deeply personal thing for people to sort of really. And it's not about. I really don't like these Instagram, things and self-help where it's change your life in 7 minutes by getting up at 5 a.m. I'm like, I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. And I think it makes people feel, this whole self-help and change up your thing. You can go to work and do a job, and then when you can come home, you can learn, you can pick up a skill. You can, if you want to learn a language, or if you want to do something, we have a whole world of opportunities on the internet, to do that. And I think it's about taking the first step. It's if I hadn't have been signed up for a triathlon, I now wouldn't be able to swim, and being able to swim has now opened up a whole world. And I think it's taking the first step, and that first step is super scary. or it can be, but it gets easier the more you do it. It's like anything. And so I would encourage anyone, to just pick something up and have a go. And if it goes wrong or if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. We're really not told that failure is a positive thing.
Yeah.
I run a startup, you run a business. There's no guarantee. I will put everything I have into making Hundo work because it matters, because there's millions of young people who need support. And if we can somehow make that work, I'll get up every day for that. But there's no guarantee, in life of anything. So for me, just give it a go, and you don't have to tell anyone. It's like if it goes wrong, it doesn't. I'm still trying to learn Ableton, and it's driving me up the wall. And at some point, I'm probably just going to throw the towel in and go. I just know how to play records, and I'm just going to stop trying to be a producer. But just pick something up and give it a go. And the worst thing that happens is you don't like it, or it doesn't work. That's as bad as it gets.
Love that, Esther. You've given me a lot of energy. Look, we're going to dive into the last part of the show, which is the quickfire questions. I'm basically going to throw some questions at you relatively quickly. And give me quickfire answers. If you do want to dive into it, I won't hold you. So, look, let's start off with the first one. What's the kind of one bit of advice that you were given as a young person that you think had such a huge impact?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I don't have an answer to that. I think mostly I rebelled against everything. So it wasn't advice so much. It was just, I would look at things and go, no, I'm not doing that.
Let's flip that around. What's the one advice you would now give the 16-year-old Esther?
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. I wish someone had said that at that time. In fairness, one person did say when I opened the record shop, it was actually Tony Wilson from Factory Records. He said, people will either love or hate you for what you're doing. Either way, they're going to be talking about you. So there it is, And
you know what? This kind of, it's going to be okay. I wonder, do you think you would have listened? Do you think if someone said it's going to be okay to you at 16, you would have listened?
I don't know if I'd have believed them.
Yeah,
I would have listened, but I don't know if I'd have believed them. I wish young people could, though.
Because it's almost like, I think if someone told me that today, I'd be like, it's one of those things where hindsight is 20/20, but you just wonder, at what point do you think you're ready to listen to someone who's kind of 20 years on, who's saying, it's going to be okay, don't worry, chill out, relax a bit more. And it's at what point will you ever listen?
It's difficult. Difficult.
What's the one bit of advice you'd give to someone who's thinking about doing the triathlon for the first time?
Don't attempt an Ironman as your first triathlon. Right. Maybe do a sprint or a standard or an Olympic before you hurl yourself into the most ridiculous thing that anyone that's ever tried to do.
I mean, this is not really a quick fire one, but I'd love to get your take on it, which is, after helping so many people and organizations find the right candidates and the right people for the job, what's it been like hiring and expanding your own team at Hundo?
It's been great, actually, because we're clearly like a super values driven social impact, mission business. And my whole thing always is going like, we're not perfect. Like, we're never going to be perfect, largely because I'm the founder of the business. So, but it's like, we are going out to companies and talking about the benefit of, young people, of a diverse workforce. And actually, it makes us hold ourselves to a super high standard, So for us, it's like, I can legitimately go to a business and say we have a 50% gender, we have neurodiversity, we have ethnic diversity, and we have young people in our business. And if we as a startup, bootstrap startup can do that, anyone can do that. And I do think it's much more powerful when you can go out, for me particularly, because it goes to integrity. It's like if I'm sitting there telling a business what they're doing, then my team are like on their knees and having a really bad time. that just doesn't work for me. And I've always been like, it's like your vibe attracts your tribe, and I think we have got like a proper tribe, and it's like, it's good, man. The nicest thing is everyone who interacts with us, they're always like, the Hundo calls are the ones like I look forward to, like they're the best ones out of my whole week. And I'm like, if we can keep that going, ask me again in a year. But yeah, certainly building it from the ground like that is super important. And I'd love to believe one day that, before I am like ridiculously older, that we could be like just powered and run by young people. That for me would feel like success, if the whole thing is just run by the people that we set out to help.
Sounds amazing. And what would you say as the next question for someone who's listening to this, who's say in a HR team, or maybe they're a founder, a senior leader, what's the one thing they can apply today, this week, to kind of support better diversity, and more so from a hiring younger people perspective? What's the one thing they can start to do from today?
Talk to us.
I'll set you up there.
In fairness, but also don't fear it. Don't fear the change. It's coming anyway. Gen Z is rising and rising. They're not going away. Embrace them. Work with them. You'll get a better business because of it.
Cool. Last question from me is: what's the one skill you'd love to develop, and why?
I would love to learn to sail.
Oh wow! Where did that come from?
Because I really want to go. When Hundo is, hopefully, a massive success and running itself. I want to go and basically do like I have a massive thing about blue carbon and the environment. So I'd love to go like and work with Sea Shepherd.
Wow.
And actually go and like volunteer on the boats and stop illegal and overfishing happening. And I feel to do that, I feel basically now I'm completely useless to them, apart from being able to swim. Whereas if I can like pick up some sailing skills, can't even say it, then I'll be a useful human in the future.
Incredible. Esther, this has been a very inspiring chat for me, and I'm sure for everyone listening as well. You are an incredible person, and thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Cheers.
And that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Whether you're inspired to take on a triathlon or motivated to make the most of your available talent, I hope you've taken something away from my conversation with Esther. If you'd like to connect with either of us, everything you need is in the episode description. You can also head over to gethownow.com/podcast to find the show notes and information on every other episode of 99 Problems. If you enjoyed this episode, please do think about subscribing, sharing, leaving us a review, or telling a friend. It goes a long way in helping the show grow. Thanks, and see you next time.